Lord, we come to you together as one because we know you look at us as your children. And we appreciate the comforts you bless us with. But we know those comforts may not last if we don't be good citizens and honor you with what we do. We pray that all we do is an honor and a blessing for your kingdom. We ask that these people that are here tonight always seek the truth. We pray for the folks who will be making presentations that you'd fill them with your words and that it would be good. We ask for your blessing on all we do in Jesus' name. Amen. Amen.
And Bill?
Yes?
Lead us in.
There's the flag. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Okay, so tonight we have two candidates that are running for U.S. Congress, Texas District 17, Ralph Patterson and Kaleb Sense. I'm going to let them do most of the talking, so Mr. Patterson, you have the floor first.
good. If I let Kaleb talk first, he gives my speech a lot of the time. Actually, Kaleb and I have been traveling around the district a lot of places together, and we've gotten to know each other a little bit. So I'll try not to use all of his talking points, and he'll try not to use mine. I'm going to throw those down there. I just want to, first of all, I'm Ralph Patterson. I've been married to my wife, Kathy, for 34 years. I've got a daughter that's 32, just had a new grandbaby about 150 days ago. So whatever that is, almost 5 months, right? And so I've had people ask me that I just wake up one morning mad and decide to run for Congress. I said, no, I woke up mad every morning and decided to run for Congress. I don't know about y'all, but I love America. I think it's it is the greatest country in the world. But here's what I know, our country's in trouble. And we can't continue on the trajectory we're on in a lot of different areas. In particular, our economy. I don't know how many of y'all have looked at your 101k lately. I'm sorry, your no, it's a 101k. It was a 401 until the beginning of the year. If you're in the stock market, probably off. The good news is oil prices dropped through the bottom and gas prices are going down. But Texas economy is going to be in trouble because of it. Our budget was based on a $60 a barrel oil. We're now somewhere sub $30. So our state legislators are going to have to deal with that, aren't they, Timothy?
Absolutely.
Let me just tell you a little more about where I've been. I've been the county chairman for the Republican Party in McLennan County for the past 2 terms. What that means is I've had somebody say, well, he's a party guy. Let me just say this, the Republican Party has some of the same problems America does. We have the wrong people in charge, and we need to take our party back, as well as, this, again, I know this is the Tea Party, but there's very few Democrats become part of the Tea Party in the state because some of their values don't match up with what my values are. I'll certainly welcome anybody who wants to come and vote for me or the Republican Party, but this is what I do. The Republican Party is the only opposition party in the United States that can oppose the things that Barack Obama and the Democrats are trying to shove down our throats. And so I became part of the Republican. I've been a Republican my entire life. I've never voted as a Democrat. Our opponent can't say that. He voted as a Democrat back in 2008. And when asked why he voted for Barack Obama, he said he didn't. So I would say, oh, well, then he must have voted for Hillary, right? So if that's what you did and you weren't part of the process, if you didn't vote as a Republican, then you can't be in the precinct conventions, you can't go to the state convention, you can't be part of how the Republican Party does its business, at least for that cycle, right? And then he didn't vote in the general election. So that meant that Barack Obama got elected when he was running against John, whatever his name is, John McCain. But if you don't vote, what do we all say? If you don't vote, you voted for the Democrat. So having said that, My wife and I have talked about this over the past couple of years, and again, as the county chairman, my job was to get these guys elected and keep them elected, right? And that's what the county chairman's supposed to do. The truth of the matter was, I couldn't stomach it this time. I'd seen too many of them come in and tell us what they were going to do, tell us about their conservative values, tell us about their 100% pro-life voting record, about their NRA ratings and all that. And guess what? They voted just like the Democrats on the omnibus bill. Now, why do we pick on the omnibus bill here? He and I both had filed before they voted on the omnibus. But the truth is, we did this the last time too. They wait till the last minute. Let me tell you a little story. Kaleb, you can't tell this story because you didn't do this. When I was in high school, I stayed up all night the night before my term paper was due. I was probably a bad student, but I graduated in the top 10% of my class. So in my senior year, I was mostly, well, I was going to school in the morning, I was working a job in the afternoon, I was going to college 2 nights a week, and I was working another job the other 5 nights a week. So the term paper just didn't come up until the last night. But here's what I did. I worked all night long, and I said a C one time, but I may have gotten a D on the term paper, okay? Senior year, half days, senior fever, but I got a D. You know what? That's what you deserve if you wait till the last day to do something, right? That's what they did on the omnibus. They waited till the last day, the last week of the year, and said, oh, we have to vote for this bill that we can't debate and we can't amend. And it's got mostly good stuff in it. It's about 60% good. You video? I'll tell it anyway. How many of y'all, if they came out and brought the brownies out and said, well, it's only got 40% horse manure in it. Would you eat those brownies? Of course not. Nobody would do that. So when they say, I want to know what the threshold is for our Republican leadership in Congress, what's the threshold for bad stuff that can be in a bill and they're still willing to vote for it? This is what I know. They wanted to get the oil embargo, the oil ban lifted. And maybe that's a good thing. Maybe some people think it is, some people think it isn't. I'm still questioning why we're exporting something we're still importing. I don't know how that works. I know it's got something to do with who gets the money on this side versus who gets the money on this side. Somebody got money out of the deal, and that's what they want to do. But what they traded for that was, they could have held the line and said, we're not going to fund abortions with taxpayer dollars. Now, whether you're pro-life or pro-choice, most people don't want it funded with taxpayer dollars. If you're pro-choice, great. I don't want to pay for it. I shouldn't have to pay for it with my taxpayer dollars. They didn't do that in the omnibus. They could have held out onto that. They could have made that one of the things. Someone asked me the other day, are you willing to fight a civil war over the pro-life issue? Yeah. Here's the question. This is what I said. We fought a civil war over slavery, which was an abomination. Let me ask y'all this. Somebody brought this up to me. If we were taking 2-year-olds and taking them apart and selling their parts off, do you think an organization did that would last one day in America? No.
Yeah. Obviously,
Well, why do we tolerate it of the unborn? If we believe life begins at conception like I do, why do we tolerate an organization to do that? And not just tolerate the organization, but we pay for it with our tax dollars. We can't do that. Let me change the subject. So our veterans, how long have we known that veterans are dying waiting to see their doctor? 5 years, 6 years? We've known it for a long time. Our congressman's been there for 5 years. There's been no difference. 5 years pro-life choice. Anybody think the trajectory on abortion has changed in the last 5 years? Are we a million? Well, it's been almost 6 million abortions since Bill Flores took office 5 years ago. 6 million, but yet he's got a 100% pro-life rating. You know why he does? Because they'll do just like they did. Has it been 2 weeks now since they voted to defund Planned Parenthood? Yeah. They voted to defund Planned Parenthood, went to the Senate, passed, went to the president, vetoed, sent it back, couldn't override it. What was the net result of that? They got a check mark that they're pro-life because they voted to defund Planned Parenthood. Guess what? They didn't defund Planned Parenthood. Let me ask y'all this. Why do you have to defund something if you claim you never funded it in the first place?
Right.
You don't have to defund something if you don't fund it. So somebody funded Planned Parenthood. And again, even if you don't think it was Planned Parenthood, we funded the Health and Human Services that gives grants to organizations that perform abortions. They said, well, Planned Parenthood they only do about 25% of the abortions. So they're only doing about 250,000 of them a year. And they're using our money to do it. And I don't want y'all to think I'm a one-issue guy. I think that is indicative of how our Congress works. They tell us that they're one way. If we didn't have our congressmen telling us what they were doing, a lot of us wouldn't know. But this time they got caught. They got caught with their hand in the cookie jar. Because we all know what the omnibus did. It funded Syrian refugee resettlement. Our congressman told us multiple times now that there are not going to be any Syrians coming in for 18 months. Anybody believe Syrians aren't coming to Texas in less than 18 months? They were on the news the other day. It's kind of like when they interview, interviewed these fugitives, and it's like, dude, the TV reporters can find this guy. Why can't y'all find this guy? So when they say Syrians aren't coming, and we see them on TV, and our governor and our lieutenant governor and our attorney general saying we don't want y'all sending them here without notifying us, and that's the big news, and our congressman says they're not coming for 18 months. Any of y'all believe they're not coming for 18 months? No. One of the big things they're touting in the omnibus is it tightened up the waiver program. Are y'all familiar with what the visa waiver program is? That's countries that we don't require a visa from, right? So they tightened it up. Great. Louis Gohmert said there was a hole in it big enough to drive a truckload of jihadists through. Louis got away with words there. Here's what I'll tell you. They were trying to pass a bill called the SAFE Act. They've been touting the SAFE Act. It's something for foreign something. It's supposed to be where the head of DHS, Department of Homeland Security, the FBI are going to sign off on it. Now, I think the intention was to slow down these refugees coming. But here's what I'll tell you. First of all, the head bureaucrat in these agencies doesn't know squat about them. Second, if you come in and you say, this is the analogy I came up with. I think that our visa or our immigration process works like this. You come into the country, somebody says, are you a terrorist or are you here to kill Americans? You say, no. They say, welcome to America. And you go out, and once you leave the airport, you're in the wind. Nobody knows where you are. They can't find you again. Those people in San Bernardino came into that process. When they asked them, are you here on this fiancé waiver thing? Are y'all familiar with the fiancé waiver thing? That says if you're going to, one of the questions they ask is, have y'all ever met before? Okay, they're engaged to be married, and the question is, have you ever met before? And she couldn't answer it, and so they said, well, get back with us on it. That's how those people in San Bernardino got treated.
Ridiculous.
So, do y'all believe we're safer now after 5 years of our current congressman going to Washington and taking care of us? I don't. Syrian refugee resettlement comes right up against what do we do about the immigration problem or the illegal immigration problem. So, first of all, let me just say where I stand on it. I am totally and completely against amnesty. Y'all are going to hear Bill Flores take a quote from me out of context where I said, Congress has been cowards and have not handled the problem. They haven't even discussed the problem. They refuse to discuss it because they don't have the courage to. I didn't call them cowards. I said they don't have the courage to discuss it. How much time do I have left?
All you need.
I told her I wasn't going to take 20 minutes, but I'm making it. When we start talking about immigration, I am not in any way, shape, or form for amnesty. But here's what I said. Congress has to discuss it. And if we come up with a solution that includes deporting them all, I'm fine with that. And then I used the A word on the other end and said, if our country decides that's one thing, are we going to do that? No, we're never going to decide that amnesty is the right plan. We're never going to decide that, and I'm never going to support it if we do. But here's what I will tell you. If we don't do something about it, we cannot continue in the direction we're going. We have to enforce the laws on the books. If we did, this problem would already be solved. Let me tell you, there's a law that says that you as an employer can't hire an illegal alien. Are y'all aware there's a law that says that? Yeah. When do you think the last time that law was enforced? Let me ask you this. If we went out and started arresting employers, CEOs of companies that hired illegal aliens, how long do you think that they would continue to hire illegal aliens? I'm just saying, there's laws on the books to handle this. Once there's no jobs, and we refuse to allow our welfare system to be a hammock instead of a safety net, I mean, we need a system out there. You know what, I started off wrong. Let me back up to the beginning. I know that everybody likes that one, right? No, just kidding. My whole philosophy of what our federal government should be doing is protecting the vulnerable and the innocent. That's the very young, the unborn, the very old, the mothers of the unborn that are under attack from these people. But the very old, the very young, the unborn, their mothers, those in between that need some extra help because of circumstances or disabilities, they need help. We need to protect them. We could talk about how that affects the drug trade and all the other stuff that goes there. But once you say that, then it becomes secure the borders, so protect our troops. And let me just touch on the veterans. We were having a conversation about the veterans. I have to be careful because my daughter works for a unnamed federal agency, and she's been threatened with, just because I'm running for office, she's worried about her having her job threatened. So I will tell you this, I know things about the Veterans Administration. It's actually, my daughter always corrects me, Veterans Affairs, which has an administration. The administration of Veteran Affairs needs to be run off maybe with a stick. The people that are providing the services, our hospitals, I'm sure there's some good people in there, but we are not empowering them to take care of our veterans. Veterans should not be dying waiting to see a doctor. We have to change how the system works. But the problem is Congress continues to fund them. And so last night I said we need to cut funding to the VA. Now they're going to take that out of context. The context was we have to get rid of those people in the VA that aren't doing their job. And the only thing that Congress has is the power of the purse. Oh wait, they gave it away by giving 5 minutes? Great. I usually only get 5 minutes, so you're giving me 5 more minutes. I told her that nobody wants to listen to one of us talk for 20 minutes. So I was going to do about 10 minutes, and I was going to let y'all ask me questions because usually you guys know better what I should be telling you than I do. Let me finish with the veterans. Our veterans, we talk about entitlements, but the word's been perverted. Our veterans are entitled to care. We wrote a contract with them. They said, I will give you up to and including my life. And you know what we gave them? We've let them come back. They're killing themselves 22 a day on the average. PTSD is a real thing. We're not handling it properly. We have veterans that need to get in to see a doctor and they can't. We have to do something to change it. If that means the choice card, is that what they're calling it? The choice card? Y'all familiar with the choice card? If you're more than 40 miles away, then you can go to a different doctor. We need to say if you need to see a doctor and you can't get in to see one in X number of days, you can go anywhere you want to, and providers will be required to take it. Part of the problem is we're not sending our military into combat prepared and equipped properly for them to come back in one piece. I'll tell y'all a quick story. My son-in-law was over he wasn't my son-in-law then. My daughter had been pitched off of one of our horses and broke her pelvis in her back. So she's in a hospital bed in my living room. And this young man was coming over and talking to her, and he spent his last night there sitting beside her in bed, them talking, and then he went to Iraq. He was in the last wave coming out of Iraq. Because they were coming out of Iraq, that was no longer a combat mission. It was a wind down mission. So they didn't give them battle loads for their rifles. They didn't have enough ammunition. So they went around and stole ammunition from the guys that were rotating out and hid it under their lieutenant's rack till they needed it, then they would go out. He was either calling or texting or emailing my daughter saying, hey, could your dad get us some batteries for our tack lights? They didn't have batteries for their lights, and they're going out on night mission. So their rifles have lights on them with no batteries in them. So I was shipping batteries over. When I go into Batteries Plus, there's a big rack there that says, these are the batteries our military uses. Now, why would Batteries Plus have a rack there telling people, these are the batteries that our military uses? If I was the only one buying them, I wasn't. A lot of people were shipping batteries over. Well, Thanksgiving Day comes, and he's asked my daughter for a care package. He says they're not getting enough calories for all the, it's hot and all the stuff that's going on. Some officers brought Thanksgiving dinner over there, but they were out on a mission. When they got back, all the food was gone, and because Thanksgiving had been brought in, there was no mess that day, and so they didn't get food. So he told her that they had found a big Conex container full of Otis Funkmeyer cookies. I probably shouldn't be giving Otis Spunkmeyer a commercial, but they went through and he said they were going through them and they were picking out the ones that the rats hadn't eaten through the cellophane on, and they were supplementing their diets with those to get enough calories to not, well, they were still losing weight, but that's what they were eating for supplement. Cookies. He said they were picking through the ones that the rats hadn't eaten. He said they ran out of those, and so they were just breaking off the parts that the rats ate. Now let me tell y'all something. That's one of the factors that entered into me running for Congress. Our troops should never be in a situation where they're having to share food with rats because we're winding down a mission. We need to have people with the courage and the conviction to protect our troops, our veterans, our unborn, our small businesses that are being crushed by regulation. How much time do we have?
1 minute.
1 minute. Our small businesses, last year there were 82,000 pages of new regulations put in the Federal Register. 82,000, a new record. Our party, the Republican Party, is supposed to be the party of less regulation, but yet 500 and something pages of that were new regulations that fall on small businesses. Let me tell you something, big business is not what drives Americans' economy. Small business and small business people are the backbone of our economy, and we have to protect them. If you'll send me to Congress, I will make sure that we take care of our veterans, we'll take care of our troops, we'll become the world's greatest power again. Let me tell you, I'm not narcissistic enough to think that I can go to Washington and change the entire culture, but here's what I will promise you. I will be that guy that helps the guy like the guys that voted against the omnibus. You know, Bill Flores says he had to vote for it. Roger Williams didn't have to, Brian Babbitt didn't have to, Louis Gohmert didn't have to, Lamar Smith didn't have to. Those are not our wild-eyed Tea Party kind of people, y'all know what I mean? Those were reasonable people that said, I can't vote for it, one, because it funds Planned Parenthood, and two, because it doesn't take care of the economy, and three, done. She's fixing to put the hook on. I will be the guy that gives them courage to know that I've got their back and I've got your back, and I will work hard for you to make sure, you know, saying you work hard is one thing. Y'all know what has been done over the last 5 years. No one has been able to give me anything that has changed the trajectory of this country that our congressman has done, and now he wants to go out and question my Christianity and how hard that I work for my family. I will tell you, I will work for you. I'm not doing this for I am doing it for my grandchild. I'm doing it for your children and your grandchildren. It's a big sacrifice for my family to do this, but that's not, I don't want you to vote for me for that. I want you to vote for me because you know I will sacrifice for your family too. Thank you very much. I am Ralph Patterson. I hope you will vote for me. Voting's already started. If you've already voted and you didn't vote for me, well, shame on you. But and thank you for being patient and being willing to come out on what night is this, Thursday? I lost track of the nights. Thank y'all very much for letting me have the time to talk to you. And I'll answer any questions you have after Kaleb gets up there and makes me look bad.
Thank you very much. And you'll get
Thank you. My name is Kaleb Sims, and some of y'all have heard this before, but you're going to get to hear it again. For those of you that do not know me, I am from Groesbeck, not very far north of here. I grew up there, went to school at Texas A&M, loved it so much I hung around for a few more years, and met my wife. She wasn't my wife when I met her, but we met here at College Station. Actually, it's where we met. We ended up getting married, and we moved back to Groesbeck in a roundabout way to raise our family. We have 2 girls. They are 5 and 3, and we have a son who will be here in May. And so we're excited about that. And I am one, I've always watched the political process play out, paid attention to what was going on. Tried to help get Bill Flores elected in 2010. And as I watched the things going on, like, I'm just going to take this for granted, like all of you, very disappointed at what comes out and in the direction of where we're going. And among the concerns that I see is just the self-destruction of the spending and borrowing. Because in the end, we all know how this ends up. Because we've seen what happened to Enron in the WorldCom. We saw what happened to Lehman Brothers. We watched what happened to Greece. We saw what happened to USSR. We know what happens when your economies self-destruct because of irresponsible leadership. And I'm watching this, and I'm watching the other things going on, and the abject, just total amorality of the abortion industry in our country. And many other things going on. And my wife and I were talking about these things, and we're engaged in them. And even though I had supported Bill Flores previously, I'd never actually heard him speak until here a few years ago. And I went to a meeting where he spoke, and so all I know about Bill Flores really at that point was what I got from him in the mail, and his newsletters that he sends from DC. And if that's all you know about him, you very well could place him in. And this was my idea. He was somewhere like a Louis Gohmert, Ted Cruz kind of guy. I mean, he sounds very, very conservative in his own campaign material. I went to a meeting where he spoke, and I was like, this guy's John Boehner made over again. And we left that meeting, and I asked my wife, I said, what'd you think? She said, I was disappointed. I said, well, I'm going to go back, and we're going to look and watch how he votes. And so I had to start buying antacids. It was a frustrating thing to watch how he votes. And long story short, last August, we went to a town hall meeting because I got the opportunity to go up there. I didn't really know how Bill ran his town hall meetings at that point, but I found out that for a 1-hour town hall meeting, he talks for 50 minutes. And then he has a few people planned to ask him softball questions. And then generally he wraps up. Well, he had a very friendly crowd that evening. And he said, as long as y'all have questions, I'll hang around and answer them. And I was like, great, because I've got like 6 questions here on my sheet. And I got to ask him a question about his vote for TPA, Trade Promotion Authority. I don't know if y'all followed that, but that was Congress giving Obama the authority to negotiate the Trans-Pacific Partnership. I thought that was a bad idea. Actually, there was no part of it that could be construed as a good idea. And he voted for that, and so I asked him about it, and he deflected it very deftly. I was impressed. And so at the very end of the meeting, it wasn't supposed to be the end of the meeting because I still had questions, but it turned out that my second question was the end of the meeting. And my second question was, in 2014, fresh off of the Republicans getting a historic majority in the House, and the voters giving the Republicans a majority in the Senate, belly full of fire, the conservatives came out en masse to defeat the omnibus spending bill. And they had it whipped. John Boehner had to call a recess and arm twist and lie, and got 4 people to swap their votes from no to yes. And in that vote swap, it would have been a 1-point margin. It was a 2-vote margin. But even then, one person swapping their vote from yes to no would have killed it. Bill Flores voted for it at that procedural vote. In the final vote, he voted against it. It passed by a margin, and it didn't matter. And so his official record shows he opposed that bill, and in fact, he's part of the reason that it was saved. And so I asked him, why did you join with John Boehner and Barack Obama in saving this bill? And, it's interesting. He doesn't handle hard questions well. And so that kind of ended the meeting. But in that, I had some people come up to me and they said, it's obvious you know what you're talking about. Have you ever thought about running? And I said, no, that's not even ever crossed my mind before. But as other people had asked me about serving in other capacities, I would talk to my wife about it, and really city level things, school board things, those are important positions, and yet those aren't things that were really on my heart the way that this was. And so we began to pray about it and talk to people in our circles of influence. And we got a lot of positive feedback. And I really didn't know when we got out out into the other communities, you know, how many people would be looking for another option. But in it all, we realized, one, that opposing an incumbent like Flores, who's very well established and money is not a problem for him, that unseating an incumbent like that is nearly impossible. But our decision was that there are principles that must be stood for, and that we need somebody to stand up. And I look back over the last several elections, and there really was no challenge to Bill Flores. And so we came to the conclusion, much prayer, that this was what we should be doing. And so I filed to run for U.S. Congress. My dad thought I was crazy. And then I started saying, "Dear Lord, how in the world do I tell people what I see?" And it wasn't long until he answered that prayer, because they cast their vote on the omnibus bill. And then I started getting emails. "Who are you? We need to know, because we're done with Bill Flores." And so then began really my journey into this. We all, you're here at a Tea Party meeting, we all share pretty much the same values. We have the same concerns, whether it's spending, whether it's the Holocaust of unborn children, whether it's the dereliction of duty in defending our borders, whether it's the overreach of a government that continues to ignore the Constitution and seek to garner more and more power for itself and inject itself more and more into our lives every day in areas it has no business. We need people of principle that will stand up, that will go to that Capitol Hill and stand up and stand against that establishment and tell them, my constituents do not want this. And our Constitution does not allow this. And we will do what's right. Somebody that will stand there and do the right thing, as Sam Houston is quoted as saying, do the right thing and risk the consequences. I care not if they put me on the best committee seat, because I know that I won't get that. They won't like me very much up there. But they don't like Louis Gomer very much up there either. And those are the kind of people that we need, standing up there and saying, enough is enough, we're going to do the right thing. Too much of the establishment caters to, well, the establishment. The establishment is into catering to business. They cater to the lobbyists. That's what their thing is. They get their money from the lobbyists and they come back and they run their propaganda back home. That's how the game is run, and that's what we're up against. Not here in Brazos County, y'all are blessed. Chairman of the Republican Party here, great guy, treats everybody very even-handedly, and does, from what I can tell, just the best job. Not that way in every county. In my county, my chairman actually tried to convince me that I would not have any chance of winning this race, and I should not even run this race. And he's been putting up signs for Bill Flores. So I kind of know where he stands. He actually called and tried to intimidate one of my supporters who invited people to come to a town hall meeting. And we went to a Reagan Day dinner in another county. It was basically a rally for Bill Flores. And you see these things and you see how they use their influence to try and game the system. And we have to get out and push back against that. Because if we don't stand up for what's right, those who will do wrong, those bad actors, will win the day. And we will all lose. In the end, we lose our nation. That's how it is. And so that, in the face of the opposition, in the face of the odds, That is why I'm here, is because somebody needs to fight the fight. Principles must be stood for. And that's why I'm asking for your votes. And with that, I don't know how much time is left. 7 minutes. With that, I would like to open up for questions. Yes, sir.
You kind of addressed this question after I thought of it when you were talking about some of those counties up there that being very more pro-florist. We have, I think, a disadvantage in that we're tied in with McLean County and kind of Waco. That was Chet Edwards' big territory, and he lasted a long time because that is a more liberal area than the rest of this district. Have you seen any movement in that area to move toward options? I mean, his victory had something to do with the fact that he was more conservative than Chet Edwards, but not as wild as us bad old Tea Party people down here.
His victory in 2010 was much because of the establishment. He made his trip to Washington. He ran through the interviews. He got the blessing of the establishment, and he got the establishment money. He brought in his own money. But when somebody can just cover up the airways, they can say what they want to, especially if they have no record. Now, one of the problems he has now is he has a record. And if y'all got to see the forum last night, I actually asked him point blank, you told people that this omnibus bill didn't fund Planned Parenthood, that it did not fund the Green Climate Fund. In the fact that it does actually provide money, both of those will receive money through that omnibus bill. That is a fact. Don't take my word for it. Go to the internet and type in Omnibus Green Climate Fund, and you'll get story after story of how they will receive money through the omnibus bill. Same thing with Planned Parenthood. Planned Parenthood praised the omnibus bill because it left all of their funding intact. If you're curious, Planned Parenthood does get some money that's not through the omnibus bill. It comes through Medicaid, but it does receive money. Planned Parenthood affiliates do receive money through Title X family planning in the omnibus bill. That is in there. Planned Parenthood is not named by name. It is appropriated to family planning, and I guess it's HHS that actually decides who gets that money, but it's diverted through that appropriation to Planned Parenthood.
They hide it, skeleton.
Yeah, they do.
Very clever.
The Green Climate Fund, it's funded with it's going to receive money through the appropriations of the omnibus bill. It also is not named by name. They funnel money through various funds that don't have specific appropriations. So it's just money sitting there waiting for Obama to use it for he wants to. Guess what his priorities are? So the Green Climate Fund will be funded this year through those appropriations. Yes, ma'am.
What are your plans for the IRS?
A lot of people say eliminate it. I don't know exactly who collects taxes if you have no one set up to do that. Yes, sir.
The answer to that question is the people collect the taxes when you switch over to the fair tax. Are you familiar with the fair tax?
I am. And let me address that separately. But there has to be some kind of administration that says, okay, we're receiving money and making sure that it's all. What I don't want is the bully pulpit that they have right now. And they need all of that power taken from them. And we need to simplify our taxes so that things are fair, even-handed, and simple.
I actually asked my question wrong.
Okay.
My husband died in 2010,
Yes, ma'am.
December 22nd. And I did not file my taxes in April. And I filed it way till October. And someone from Florida filed under his social security number, his name, for some investment money. And they would have, if IRS had paid them, they would have gotten $10,000 back, and I would have not gotten a penny. Fortunately, the IRS did not pay them, so I did get my return. And I actually had to go to Mr. Forrest's office for that to happen, because the IRS would not talk to me.
That's messed up.
it's messed up that they didn't talk to you. It's amazing that they didn't get it wrong with giving the other people your money.
Yes, it really is.
And I'm glad that that went right, because generally it doesn't. There are a number of tax plans out there that are being pitched, flat tax, fair tax. In my estimation, perfect world situation, fair tax is the easiest and best thing out there. We don't live in a perfect world. And just like last night, if y'all heard us talking about Senate rules, if you change the rules when you're in power, you have to realize that at some point you may not be the one in power. And so if we go to a fair tax, which is essentially the national sales tax, what is to say that the Democrats at some point in the future don't decide to say, you know what, bullets really need to have a 300% tax bill?
Under the fair tax, you can't do that.
The Congress. The Congress, and so that's, no, I am with you, and I love the idea of the fair tax. I have concerns about it and how we would implement it so that it could not be perverted in that way. And so my preference is to say a flat tax, because I have concerns about how could the fair tax be perverted. If those concerns, if we could meet those concerns, then I would be happy for us to go to a fair tax, because that's actually the most optimal situation. Yes, sir. I'm sorry. Let me add.
Please.
One of the biggest problems that I think Congress has dropped the ball in, including the House and Senate, is just the idea of they've ignored their constitutional authority to disband courts. They can impeach judges. They can disband federal judges. They can declare whole areas out of reach, out of the jurisdiction of the federal judiciary. They can say all First Amendment issues are out of the federal, are not within the jurisdiction of the federal courts. It's clearly in Article 1. And the fact that they haven't done it is most Republicans, there's an article here I want to give all of y'all from the week, written by Daniel Horowitz, a conservative review, where most Republicans, basically he reviews how they're going to cave on this, how the Senate is going to cave on it. But the fact that the House neither has done, bothers me that they haven't done anything to take these, they're content to let the federal judiciary do their dirty work. And so that this way they don't have to stand up for traditional marriage. They can let the federal judiciary, Supreme Court, do their dirty work on that and all these other issues. So, and just like they did with Roe v. Wade. So I guess my question for you, would you have the bold, and of course my beef with Mr. Flores is he's like all of them.
Yes.
He would never consider it. And so, would you have the courage to do that, or is it you think that's too wild and far out of an idea to actually tell the federal judiciary what they do?
No, the checks and balances need to be enforced. And, you can impeach judges, and it's something that probably needs to be happening. And by probably, I mean there's people that need to be brought out from their position. But no, I am, Mr. Flores and the rest of the establishment cartel guys up there, their idea of how things should go is you should never put yourself in a losing situation. And so you may, it's okay to go ahead and lose up front as long as you don't try and fight for something and then lose it. I don't agree with that. And while I don't, I'm sorry?
Cruz don't believe that. He'll fight even if he loses, but at least he fought.
And when he stood up and filibustered in 2013, there were a lot of, and Flores was one of them, Boehner, McConnell, all those guys, stood up there and threw rocks at Ted Cruz while he filibustered. They should have been out there supporting him. McConnell should have been up there behind him, ready to pick up the slack. But
we need about 600 or 700 more for him. We'd be okay.
And so we've got to get better, stronger leadership. People that are not afraid to do what's right, regardless of what the outcome may be. And That's what I want to do. Yes, sir.
Would you be willing to disband federal courts?
Disband federal courts?
Yes.
Or for instance, a Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals in California, they have all these far out decisions. They could just, they have the constitutional authority to disband that court and move those to those cases to the jurisdiction of other courts. It's clearly in the Constitution, and there's no reason they shouldn't be doing those kind of things.
I would want to clarify the constitutional authority, just because that's not something I've really investigated before disbanding a court. And I want to make sure that whatever I do is on the level with the constitutional authority. Yes, sir.
My personal beef is having these lawyers in Congress, they're writing the law. If they're going to be practicing law, I think they ought to represent the judicial circuit instead of being over there writing laws that later when they go home they're represent. To me, we ought to have businessmen that know how to run a business, and they're making their laws that run our government. And I don't know how I guess you'd have to make a constitutional amendment for that or something.
Okay, she's fixing to push me out, so I'm going to let me answer this real quick. No. Our biggest problem is business interference with the laws, and we've got a bunch of lawyers writing them. And so
they're writing stuff that they don't even. There's so many pages they don't even read it before they vote on it.
TPP was 5,554 pages. The member was the only one that could read. They could not send aides to read that bill. I guarantee you, very few people, if any, ever read that bill before they voted to give Obama the authority to negotiate that. Flores can say it all he wants, but 2 days, 2,009 pages, he did not investigate that spending bill the way he claims he did. And with that, I'm going to get out of there.
Thank you very much. Everybody probably has tons of questions for both candidates. I'm assuming y'all are going to stick around after?
Yes.
Yeah, so they'll be here. You can crowd them with questions after that.
Do you want any more questions from the audience here?
Yeah, because nobody asked any.
Didn't ask any of Ralph.
Did you want to?
Well, I'll take any question you want to, but I don't want Timothy D'Alessandro throwing a rock at me in a minute either. So. What if we do this? What if you let Timothy speak, and then we can take whatever question you want? Caleb and I can probably stand side by side. We don't fist fight like we're going to probably have to through the rest of this campaign. So.
Okay, all right. We've got Timothy D'Alessandro. He's going to have a quick 5 minutes. He's running for Texas House District 12, and then hopefully Jessica will be after that.
I'll just speak from back here. I just want to take a minute. You may not know that there is a House District race for House District 12 because there's almost a complete media blackout on our race. But that's okay. I think we're doing a lot of things under the radar, and I think that's going to be a great thing. You guys have a wonderful opportunity here in Brazos County. We have a conservative governor with Governor Abbott. We now have a conservative Senate with Dan Patrick as Lieutenant Governor, moving the Texas legislature more to the right. And then we have a state house with Joe Strauss being our House Speaker, originally elected by 65 Democrats and 11 Republicans.
No.
We need to change the direction of our state house. If we can change the direction of our state house, Texas can start making a huge difference to the nation. I honestly believe the place to take back Washington is in Austin. Texas is a big state, and if we start asserting our constitutional right to be a sovereign state, equal peer with the federal government, then we can start taking our power back, and as a big state, we will set an example for the rest of the nation. But to do that, we're going to have to change our House leadership. And this is why you guys have a wonderful opportunity here, because you have 2 different House district races going on here. In those 2 different House district races, you can fundamentally change the local leadership that we send to Austin, and you can start making a difference in the composition of the conservative representation we have in Austin. And like I said, I don't want to take too much time, but I want to close on one point. On WTAW last night, we had a candidates forum. You can go to WTAW.com and you can listen. And I want to point out one yes and no question and answer that was asked in my race. And this is everything you need to take to the bank on Election Day. The moderator asked point blank, would you support Joe Strauss as House Speaker? My answer, nope. All right. Representative Cassell's answer, absolutely. That's all you need to know for this race. Thank you very much for your time. Question real quick.
Timothy, I'm not in your district. Can you tell us where exactly the boundary is?
Yes, in Brazos County, if you live in the county, you're in House District 12, the district I'm running. If you live in the city of Bryan, you're in House District 14, the district Jess Fields is running in. If you live in the city of College Station, you're in Jess Fields district except for 5 subdivisions, and that's the subdivisions known as the East Side, that's Rain Tree to Foxfire, Horsehaven, and Emerald Forest, and also Welker.
Yay.
If you live in those 5 subdivisions in the city limits of College Station, you're in our district, House District 12. Other than that, all of the city limits of Bryan and College Station are in 14.
So Rain Tree is in yours?
Yes.
Okay.
Do you have a? Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. And I was just told that today is Jessica's birthday, so we're going to put it on the list. Oh, it's your birthday. Jody, you had something.
I just asked one more. Is Jess here yet?
Yes, he is.
Oh, he is. Okay.
They went to go find him. So he
Well,
didn't.
oh, he's not, well, he's not here. I'll ask
Go ahead.
Timothy.
Anyway.
Okay, Timothy, back to Joe Strauss. Explain how the power structure works.
Well, okay. So when the House leadership changed the last time, the Democrats knew they were losing power in Texas. They knew they were losing power probably for a generation. And so they made a deal with some of the moderate Republicans to elect Joe Strauss as Speaker. Joe Strauss has a lot of money. Now that Joe Strauss is Speaker, what he does is he primaries conservatives. And so there's about 20 to 25 real conservatives in the Texas House out of about 96 Republicans, 150 members of the House, about 96 are Republican, and about 25 of them are good conservatives. And the rest of them are allied with Joe Strauss. And how he keeps order in the House is he primaries the conservatives. And it's a win-win for him.
Primaries the conservatives.
Yes, he sends moderate candidates out into the 20 or 25 conservatives in the House. He puts moderate candidates up as primary opponents because it's a win-win for him. Either he picks off a seat or the conservatives are on the fence. And I'll give you an example in this race. In my current race, because Kyle Cassell is allied with Joe Strauss, dozens, almost 40 PACs have given him something to the tune of $160,000. He's got hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of money to run for because he's an ally of Joe Strauss. I will tell you this, I think this election is under the radar. I think we have a good shot here. I don't know if you guys have seen some of the media we're putting out, but I'm really trying hard to get a message out. If we win the day, I can promise you, 2 years from now, I will have a $500,000 funded challenger from Joe Strauss. This is how it works. This is how he keeps the line and he keeps control. And this is why Joe Strauss is our Speaker. So it's going to take the Ted Cruz model of going to the State House. People ask me on the campaign trail, what 3 committees would you like to be on if you're elected? And my answer is, I'm not telling you. Because if I tell you what committees I want to be on, there's no chance I will be on those committees. At least if I don't tell you what committees I want to be on, I might end up on one I want to be on by accident. But that's the kind of fortitude we have to have. We have to get rid of go along to get along. I'm going to get elected, and then I'm going to go up there, and then I'm going to come back to you later and go, well, you know, Joe Strauss really didn't have any opposition. And you have to go along to play, and so I went ahead and voted for him. And it was a tough decision. I know you guys don't agree with it. That's not who I'm going to be, I promise you. I interviewed with the Eagle. This is what I told the Eagle. Robert Gordon with the Eagle laughed because he knew what I was saying was true. I said, let me ask you this. If I get elected and I go to Austin, do you think I'm going to be a backbencher? And he laughed because he knew. Look, being a little bit of a troublemaker is not a bad thing.
So, right. The committee business, the excuse that's given by Bill Flores, by John Rainey, anybody else that's in the moderate range.
You gotta pay to play.
Yeah, well, I understand, but they say, but we can't get on the committee so we can help Brazos County.
Right.
Just like A&M's going to dissolve if you're not on a certain committee or something. Right. You know, if A&M doesn't get the money they're supposed to get, you think there's enough Aggies in Texas to make something happen? I think so. So the excuse about, oh, I'm not going to get on a committee, speak to that.
I mean, well,
you might not get on any committees. So what difference does it make?
Right, and let's, I want to use the operative example of Ted Cruz. You're wearing a Cruz hat, that's why I keep pointing to you. But I want to use the operative example of Ted Cruz. I mean, it's a different dynamic and it's a different model, but I'm going to go there and I'm going to stand up for the people in this district come what may. And I may not be the most popular person, and I may not be, on the right committee, but you can make noise and you can make a difference. Now, there's, the concept of, the window of political thought and the issues that can be legitimately discussed and pulling the agenda towards more conservative things. That's what we need to be doing. But what we need to be doing majorly, and why you guys have such a huge advantage in Brazos County, because you have 2 different state rep seats in play, is we need to increase the number of the conservatives. We need to increase the number of the conservatives to the point that we can change the leadership in office.
Yes.
And it's possible. Look at the state senate. If you'd have looked at the state senate a few years ago, you'd have thought that we're not going nowhere. But now we have, not only did Dan Patrick get elected, but he rolled back the blocker bill down to 19 instead of 21. And now the Republicans have a majority and we can get things done. And because the blocker bill was rolled back, the obstacle to getting things done in Austin now is no longer the Senate. It is the House and Joe Strauss.
Yes. Thanks.
My question to you is, what would you recommend if you're up there, what would you do about immigration and illegals crossing the border in Texas whenever Texas had to fill the bill?
This is what I would do, and this is what I talk about. Texas needs to push back and start setting an example for the nation. Border security is, under the Constitution, a federal government job. The federal government is supposed to protect our border. So as a state rep, I can sit here and say, we should build a wall. That's not the job of the state of Texas. But when you walk across that border and you take 3 steps in, you are in the state of Texas, and that is our job. And the border is a mess. There are landowners on the border in a mess. Here's what I would do. I would set up a 10-mile interdiction zone along our border. I would have a fast response team along the lines of 911 that when an owner sees people on the property, they can make a call and we respond to the same tune to 911. And then I would make it a state jail felony to be in the interdiction zone and not have the legal right to be in the state of Texas. Now, does that mean I want to take all these illegals and put them in jail? That's not what would happen. As soon as we make it a state jail felony to come across into Texas without papers, they're not going to come in at Texas. They're going to come in at Arizona, and they're going to come in at New Mexico, and they're going to come in California. And that may increase their problems, those states, but then that gives those states the fortitude to say, we need to stand up too. I would make it a state jail felony to be within 10 miles of our border here illegally. Good idea.
One comment, the fair tax will help keep illegal aliens from coming into Texas.
Prop one.
Because it takes away their economic incentive to be here.
You do realize oil has been the #1 gross domestic product for the country of Mexico for 100 years, and it got replaced in the last 4 months. Mexico has a new gross domestic product, and that's remittances from the United States. That is now the biggest industry in Mexico, Western Union. So say your question again.
The fair tax takes away their economic incentive to be
Prop
here
one.
by not giving them a prebate, which all of the registered citizens get.
Well, the fair tax would be a federal thing. I don't know, I ran for Congress in 2009, and in 2009 I said the first thing I would do if I was elected was be a sign on as a co-sponsor of the fair tax. And so I'm a supporter of the fair tax, but that's not my purview right now. But at the state level, on your ballot is Prop 1. It's a Republican primary. They're trying to take a poll of Republican primary voters. So it doesn't have any force of law, but they want to get your opinion on it. And Prop 1 is essentially replacing property taxes with a consumption tax. Yes, it's a fair tax at the property tax level. And so it would be the idea of eliminating your property taxes and replacing it with a sales tax, a consumption tax.
Which means the illegal aliens would start paying some of our taxes.
And so you have the ability to voice your opinion on that on the current ballot on Prop 1.
Thank you very much. Unfortunately, Jess will not be able to join us tonight, but Carol is going to say a few words on his behalf.
I was just going to take his time.
Well, many of you know Jess. He's been here since the Tea Party several times. And working with Jess with this campaign, y'all know that I'm coordinating all the volunteer efforts for this campaign. I've never seen someone with the work ethics and the push and the drive that Jess has. And I can tell you that I know that if he says he's going to stand on something, on an issue, and if he will have our backs, he's going to contact with all of us on issues. And, he is a constitutional constitutionalist. He's young, but I can tell you that he has such an in-depth knowledge of the political system and how it works. And he is he's for pro-life, he is for traditional marriage, he is for all of the things that you hear in the Republican platform. Jess actually, he's a good Christian, and he believes in all of these things, with all his heart. I mean, you can just see it when he's up there and when he's talking. I know that he will keep in contact with us when issues comes up. He's going to have town halls, and he's going to come and get a feel. If he votes for something, he's going to explain to us why he voted that way. It may not always be something that we want, but he's going to come back and talk to us and explain to us why he voted that way. He will stand by his vote. He is going to listen to his constituents. I know he will. I've known Jess probably for about 2 years now, and I know that he will be a better candidate than what we have today. And if you really want to have someone that will represent the grassroots and represents our traditional values, then you want to vote for Jess Fields.
He will hold his feet to the fire.
You know you will.
We were at his office till 4 this morning. I have to make it 6 right now, but we worked on it. Today is Jess's birthday. He's 28. You want to hear him give the Common Core way that you come up with 28. And it's ridiculous, that's the way it is. He's had a hard day. He was cursed at.
Multiple times today.
The negative ad on the radio, his wife heard and must have called him 30 times in 10 minutes. Jess is going through the fire, and we've got to have his back.
I had seen one of the ads that came out against him, and I got his personal number. I don't know how I ended up with it. He gave it to me.
He's given his personal
He gave me his
cell phone
personal
to
number.
everybody that, if you've got one of his cards, or
mailers, his cell phone numbers are the mailers.
he has a cell phone, he gives out his personal cell phone
Yeah,
number.
and you call him and you ask him why he voted the way he voted, he'll go step by step down through it. Because it was about that stupid fake marijuana.
Yes,
crap.
yes.
Well, he was trying to put regulations on it, not that he's for drugs in any way, shape, or form. He's not. But they wouldn't abandon it, or they wouldn't stop it from coming in. So he was trying. If there was going to be here, he wanted regulations on it.
Right.
And that's all he voted for. He was not that he's for drugs. He's not by any way, shape, or form. But he took the time to explain it in detail and make sure that I understood it before he would hang up.
Which his opponent actually voted for, this clean needle program, which is
Yeah,
just falling
that's
on its face.
hideous.
And so you're going to hear things out there, and the truth, a lot of this stuff is just plain out lies.
It is.
And you know, if you have any questions and you want to know where Jess Fields stands on an issue, call the cell phone number. It's on those push boards that we handed out. What politician do you know has given you his cell phone number? That's the kind of person Jess Fields is.
I've got Jess's cell phone number, whoever wants to, write his number down.
He won't answer right now. He will not answer right now. He's in a meeting.
Send him a text, that's all I'm talking
Text
about.
about 30 minutes or an hour.
Well, it's a good thing. It doesn't have to
Yeah, if you want
answer
to text him, that'd be fine.
Yeah, that's
But I'm
all I'm
telling you,
saying.
if he won't answer right now, he's in the meeting.
That's all I'm saying, just text him sometime before midnight tonight.
emails.
All right, so, we have about maybe 20 minutes now, left. Oh, it's almost 30. So, what I was gonna do is just have all 3 candidates come up, and if, Representative Jessica wants to come up, and just have questions. So. Yeah. Well, there, no, Timothy, if you would like to join.
Timothy, well, I don't want to rain on their
No, I mean,
You're not.
everybody.
Dude, you're not gonna outshine us. If y'all will give me just, let me say this. We're glad, I'll speak for you guys too. We're glad you guys are here. And because it separates you from most of the sheeple out there that have no idea what's going on with our country. Here's what I'm gonna ask you to do though. Whether it's me or Kaleb, if you're gonna vote for Bill Flores, I don't care what you do after you leave here, but for you people that are gonna support one of us, call 5 or 10 of your neighbors and your friends and your family and tell them to get out and vote for someone. We have to get someone in Washington that's gonna look out for us. Someone, if you think Timothy's your guy, call your friends and family and neighbors and tell them. Again, voting for us, to be honest, and don't be offended by this, but voting for someone is the least you can do. That's the absolute least. You can donate to them, you can work for them. If you call your friends and family, it means more for a vote for you to call them and tell them, hey, I heard this guy, he was a big goober, don't vote for him, vote for that other guy. Or this is the guy that I think you should vote for. That's what changes elections. That's how we move the ball. If each of us just goes and votes and we go about our business, we're not going to change the trajectory of our country. We're going to still be in a world of hurt come next year. And I would just ask and pray that you would do that. Y'all okay with that? Will y'all sign on?
Yeah, what he said, but also.
I'll stand over here for a while.
I would just like to say, you know, I mentioned earlier, most of us all share the same values. That's why you're at a Tea Party meeting. And the reason that I'm running, Ralph is running, Timothy's running, Jess is running, is because we have people that are supposed to be representing us that are not. That's right. And there is a lot of money at play for those who are willing to play that game. And they are willing to go to all lengths to protect that. And so, generally they tell you, this is my first campaign run, so I don't do other rules.
Right,
because I don't know
over your time.
I don't know anything. But you know, I'm not supposed to really stand out there and support other candidates in other races because that might alienate somebody. But the reality is that when you got Timothy standing here and he says, I'm going to vote for leadership in the House that will be conservative. And the incumbent is telling you, I'm going to vote for the status quo. I'm going to vote for the guy who has worked against pro-life issues. Which way are you going to go? Yeah. When whoever the guy that's running against Jess, no names mentioned, is casting ads out there that are getting dirty. We need to be honest with our friends and neighbors and tell them, this is a guy that we know and this is how he really is. Now, I don't know Jess very well, but I have seen him in a lot of events. And if you ask him a question, be ready to take notes. The guy is very, very sharp and very knowledgeable, way beyond 28 years.
But what he was trying to say is, do any of y'all have any questions for any of us? I'm kidding. You go ahead.
One other thing I want to say is, and it's echoing with what Ralph said. Y'all are all informed, more informed than the vast majority. And please be out there speaking to your neighbors and your friends and letting them know what you know, because they don't necessarily understand.
That's just sad. And I have a card with my personal cell phone number on it for anyone that wants one after we're done here, so.
All right, we got all kinds of questions going here.
Are you in charge now? Is that what we're saying here?
Yeah, go ahead. If you will, I don't know who's supposed to be running this, but if you will address the person you want to ask the question.
Okay. This is the same question for you and Ralph.
Okay.
And it has to do with Bill's answer about why he voted for the omnibus. But, you know, he wants to tell this bleeding heart story about I want to pay the veterans and all, pay the military and all that. Now, in his answer last night, I heard him say that he voted for it to get the military paid, but then he also said, well, we did it before, and we had a special bill to do that. Now,
But he said that there was no other way to pay the military. I'm glad you caught that.
So expand on that and just explain why he was saying, he was contradicting himself.
Without using the L word is what you're saying.
In my opinion, he was saying, I'm not going to shut the government down. And I dare say there's not too many people in this house wouldn't say, shut her down. Okay?
Now, let me say, all the reasons that he gives publicly have nothing to do with the reason that he voted that way.
Okay.
Okay, so he came out, and he's, people were complaining about Planned Parenthood. My people called him out in the middle of a meeting one day and said, here's where that funding comes from. And he said, well, but that money can't be used for abortion. Well, that wasn't the issue. We wanted Planned Parenthood not to. And so he said, he backed off of it. He said, this was a vote for the military men and women to make sure they got paid. And I backed him down off of that in a town hall, and I said, they would still go on, and you could take care of that. And so that's what that little excuse was last night. But the reality is he has motivations to keep the status quo going. And those motivations look a lot like I'm sitting on a very good committee. I have the implicit blessing of the leadership to maintain my role as the chairman of the RSC. And when he leaves out of there,
He's not going to. That's his motivation.
But are y'all all aware of what committees he sits on? Y'all know he was on Veterans Affairs for the first couple of terms, right? He only sits on one committee now. No, well, he's the head of the study group. That's the caucus that's supposed to be coming up with these bright ideas. We haven't seen any of them, but the committee he sits on is Energy and Commerce, or as I like to call it, the Oil and Gas Committee. Energy and Commerce, that's where his heart is. It is not in Veterans Affairs.
That's what put him in office.
Pardon?
That's what put him in office.
Well, half of his donations right now are from someone associated with the oil and gas industry. Fully half. He's got about he had 700,000. I think we put in his campaign fund over the last couple of weeks. He's but if that's what's important to you, that's what's important to you.
Right. Let me say something for you guys running for Washington. I was disappointed with Bill Forrest right after he voted for the increase in ceiling and the debt ceiling. I mean, the promises were we're going to hold them, if necessary, shut down the government down. But within a month after he took the oath and became a member, he was already raising funds for his re-election.
The first day they did that.
Honestly, say, hire me again. You haven't done anything to prove you.
well, in his defense,
Don't do that.
But in fairness, when you're in a 2-year cycle, and you really have just a year and a half between when you start serving and when you actually have to file to start running again. And so it's a very short cycle. I found out that when you file, it's too late to start fundraising.
Be careful about that. That is a completely.
I
understand the problem.
Yeah.
I was told that
hire somebody that hasn't even proved that he's going to be the right person.
Right.
Or he's done something.
Now, for me,
that's insulting.
For me and you, my donations to a campaign are coming when I know something about that person, or I feel like I do. His money coming from the lobbyists comes very early. Most of the money that he raised by September of last year.
I was told when you get to Washington that inside the Beltway there's an oxygen deficiency problem. And once they get in there, they lose their freaking mind. And so as a certified advanced scuba diver, I will be taking tanks with me, and I will make sure that I'm not covered by this phenomenon.
Drink the Kool-Aid. Yeah. Let's take a question for Timothy.
Sorry?
Okay. It's a question for you. Anybody have a question for him? Yes.
I'd like to know, I don't know a whole lot about Joe Strauss, but I'm thrilled that you know who the enemy is. And it's the person who's standing next to you with his hand on your back with a knife in it.
Right.
But how do we get him out? How do we tell the people in his district They know, but why do they keep voting for him? We lived in Virginia, in Eric Cantor's district for, and you know what?
Dave
He's
Bratt
gone.
saved.
We voted
Yes.
for Eric Cantor.
At one time, we did vote for Eric Cantor. We weren't there for the Dave Bratt vote, but
Dave Bratt saved the
That's our
immigration bill.
hero.
That immigration bill was gonna pass until Cantor's
Yeah.
defeat sent a shield through Congress.
so how do you get there and get Joe Strauss out?
Well, as I said, there's about 96 Republicans, and about 25 of them are
How can there be so
conservative.
few conservatives in this
Out
great
of
state?
150.
Yeah.
Amen. I mean, essentially, not this term, because the state senate became a lot more conservative. But if you go back to the incumbent's first term and John Rainey's first term, 51% of all the bills that came out of the state house were Democrat-sponsored legislation. 51% out of a Republican government. And so the way to do that is going to be to take that 25 and make it 45 and make it enough that the Republicans, that the conservatives can force the Republicans to the table. Right now, that's not the case. It's not the case for two reasons. The numbers are small, and Strauss and his people, his lieutenants, primary the conservatives, so they're always on defense. If you ask me how I would do it, but now this starts talking about, strategy at a higher level than me, but some of the organizations like Empower Texans at the state level, if you ask me, I think they should throw $50,000 at 20 candidates. Because, for example, I'm gonna be outspent 10 to 1 in this race. I'm telling you right now, I'm gonna be outspent 10 to 1, and Jess is gonna be outspent because Strauss and his money from Austin is gonna come in and back these candidates. But so their goal is to spend 3 to 5 times or more what their challengers are spending. So if we at a state level put $50,000 into 20 candidates, that's $1 million. But it's going to cost Strauss to spend $3 or $4 million to defend all those seats, and then we need to be on the offense. Instead of what happens every year is he primaries 2 or 3, Jonathan Stickland, James White, and all the conservatives marshal all the resources to defend the people we already have there, and it kind of sucks a little bit of the oxygen out of the room for candidates trying to defeat Strauss supporters. And so, pushing forward, we need to grow those ranks from 25 to more like 45 or 50 so that we have enough conservatives we can come to the table and say, you're going to come to our table. And so that's why I think we have a great opportunity here, because if you send 2 more people to Austin here, which Brazos County can do, that join the ranks of those 25, that's a 10% increase in the number of conservatives we have at the table.
But better than that, let's get him defeated in San Antonio.
Amen.
And they said, they told us in Lubbock at the Texas Federation of Republican Women, he has a strong primary candidate, but we haven't heard any more about him. Have you heard any more about San Antonio?
He's a former member of the SREC, so I know him. I probably didn't say, I'm still a member of the State Republican Executive Committee for Senate District 22, so again, another party guy. But the point is I got into the Republican Party to try to take our party back. Y'all know that Congress has an 8 or 12% approval rating. How much do y'all think Nancy Pelosi, what percentage of the vote do you think she gets out in San Francisco? I mean, she couldn't get elected to the dog catcher of, I don't want to impugn any community, but she gets 70% of the vote out in San Francisco. That's the problem we have with Joe Strauss. Joe Strauss gets voted in by his constituents because they want someone that's like that.
San Antonio, for those of you who don't know.
Let me.
That's another problem.
All right, let's just.
So at some point, we have to start helping these guys that are willing to step up.
Yeah.
I mean, all of us, we're not asking for sympathy, but it's a big sacrifice for your family. It's a big sacrifice for your business. Especially Timothy's he'll be there for 140 days every 2 years. For Congress, whoever goes up there has to give up their job, because you can't hold down a job and go do it. It's a big deal for us to do it. My daughter asked me, I was going down to file, and I could call her, and as I'm driving down, she said, I go, Elizabeth, what do you think? And she said, Daddy, I don't want you to do it. And I go, I'm on my way, right? I'm headed to Austin. I'm on 35. And she goes, but here's the thing. If you don't do it, you're going to look back and regret it. And what my granddaughter's name is Kinsey. She goes, and one day Kinsey's going to look at you and say, Grandpa, things are so bad. Why didn't you do something? That's what we all have to do. We have to be able to look ahead and have a future vision that says, we've got to do something. And today is the day we have to do something. Today is the day.
But not just
Wait,
Ralph,
another
some of the
election.
lieutenants as well, like Ryan Cook, who lives up in, whose district is up in Hill County. We start taking out some of his key lieutenants, and that starts having an effect as well. And we've had some limited success with that. And so it's a process. It's not gonna happen in one cycle, but, I mean.
Gotta start somewhere.
You gotta start here. Right.
Thank you very much. About 5 minutes, we're gonna kick us out of here. So, I'm gonna go ahead and close the meeting. Just one more blurb real quick. Will Butcher from Breast Valley Preparedness couldn't be here. He's planning a Texas gun shield law class. Anybody has questions, Jody Quimby is here to answer them, and I've got little cards. So, thank you very much for coming.
The explanation on the card.
Can I say something? You know, this, right now, this election is probably one of the most important elections. The presidency, for all, even if all these elections at the local level. Well, everybody needs to be involved. Our country is at a turning point. You need to go out, talk to your neighbors. Don't be afraid. Don't be quiet. We need to speak up. We need to get people out, helping candidates that are good candidates. We need to be getting people out, taking part in the political process. How many here attends their county convention? Our precinct convention. Your neighbors, how many come and participate? We've got to. Your vote is your voice. We've got to take part in this political process. We have to.
Thank you. Okay. To rush through guys and answer all your questions now.
And if you contact 10 people, call me on the cell phone number that you're gonna have before you leave here tonight.
Thank y'all very